excited to teach you guys today. This is my first one, so it's a pretty special day for you guys, okay? Woo! So like Irina mentioned, I'm going to be talking to you guys today about cultivating intimacy and friendship with Jesus. So if you want to turn with me to your Bibles, I'm going to give you the context of what we're going to be talking about today, which is going to be the parable of the 10 virgins in Matthew 25. So if you guys want to turn there, you can. But I'm going to kick us off with point A on your notes, where it says in Matthew 24 and 25, Jesus emphasizes how he wants people to respond to his leadership in the end times. These parables assure us of his supreme authority, and they are his invitation to us as we prepare to walk in victory in the end times. So this is kind of the foundation of what friendship with Jesus is unto, right? So Matthew 25. Jesus begins with, "Then the kingdom of heaven shall be likened to 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom." So we have 3 different people. We have the bridegroom, we have the wise virgins, and we have the foolish virgins. So in this parable, the virgins, they all go out, and they are waiting for the bridegroom to come, right? They're like, okay, so we know he's coming, we're going to go wait for him, and we'll just see when he shows up. However, when it's time to sleep, he's delayed, he's not here yet. The 5 foolish virgins, they realize, you're telling us to go out and meet him, but we don't have enough oil. We're not ready. And then you have the 5 wise virgins who are like, oh, well, they have extra, right? They overpacked, essentially. So the foolish virgins, they're looking at the wise virgins, and they're like, can we have some of your oil? Can we take some of yours? And then the wise virgins are like, no, I brought this for myself. I was ready. I can't give you mine because then I won't have any. He's like, well, lest that we have none to last us, right? So then the wise virgins, they get to stay put. They get to wait. And then the foolish virgins, they're gone. They went on their merry way because the wise virgins looked at them and they're like, go buy yourself. Go buy oil yourself. I'm not giving you my oil. So they're gone. And in that time that they're gone, the bridegroom comes. And the foolish virgins are basically just they're out of luck. They're not here. So the wise virgins are like, man, I get to go into this wedding feast. I get to be here. I get to be here with the bridegroom. I get to be here with my friend. So the foolish virgins come back. They realize the door's shut. And they're like, let us in. Let us in. And then the bridegroom's like, I didn't know you. To which Jesus ends the parable with, "Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour in which the Son of Man is coming." So in this parable, what I want to talk to you about today is how to get that oil. One or two ways to get this oil, which is the intimacy of following Jesus. These virgins had intimacy with him. They got to know him. They were like, okay, well, he's my friend. If you look in Matthew 24, you'll see that he was on time. And then this time he's delayed. Maybe he would have been on time. But the thing is that these girls knew, these virgins knew, well, who knows? He's done his thing before. I know my friend, for example, I'm the always late friend. And people are like, well, she's probably going to be 5 minutes late. Like when you know your friends, you know their tendencies. So you know, well, I got to know them and I got to be ready, right? So that's the wise virgins. We are not talking about unbelievers in this parable. I think that's something that sometimes we can overlook. If I don't have intimacy with the Lord, I'm not going to be with him. We are actually talking about believers in this parable. We have the one side, which is the foolish virgins, and they're like, I go to church every Sunday. I do my thing. I got saved. I did camp. I did youth group. Whatever. I know him. I know I'm going to go to heaven one day. And they don't spend the day-to-day getting to know him. And then we have the wise virgins that have extra oil. They're the ones that are like, man, I just can't get enough of him. I know him too well. I don't know what I would do going a day without this bridegroom friend of mine. They're not in the bridal party. They're waiting for the bridegroom to open the doors. They're waiting. Whenever that trumpet sounds and they're like, come on, the bridegroom is coming. They're waiting for that day because they know, this is my friend. I want to be a part of his special day. I want to see that. I want to be there for that. So the wise virgins have their oil. They know the Lord. They know their bridegroom. They know their friend. They know that he is coming, and I want to make sure that I'm ready. I don't want to miss out. I don't want to go anywhere. It's like them bringing their extra vessel is like us kind of bringing our battery pack to I go to Disneyland. I love Disneyland, so I'll bring a battery pack to Disneyland, right? They knew that anything could happen, so I want to be ready. So if you look at point B, the oil in their lamps is intimacy, that they have cultivated the Lord him in the secret place. In the secret place. So they didn't come to know him in front of everybody. They didn't read their Bible so they could speak a message. They didn't listen to the worship songs and look up things just so they can sing the worship song and know what it meant. They spent time with him in the secret place. Just like what you guys are doing right now in the internship. You're taking time out of your week to come here and do something that not everybody else is doing. Like you're coming to the room to spend time with the Lord, and you're cultivating oil as you sit with him, get to know him, ask him questions, push through when things are hard, when you feel bored. So when we spend more time with him in the secret place, we're going to get oil. We can't live off of yesterday's oil. We can't live off of other people's oil. We can't, and I'm going to hit that more in my teaching, but we have to get oil for today. When we know that we love Jesus and we know that he loves us, and when we are constantly spending time with him, we get oil for our lamps, to where we don't just bring the oil that can fit into our lamp, we get the oil that comes with the vessel on the side, because we can be ready for anything. So point D, Jesus desires us as his friends and his bride as we wait for his return and get in the word and the secret place, we get that oil for our lamps. As we choose him in every season of our lives and get to know him because we love him, we get oil. So as you look at him in your suffering, as you look at him in the good times, as you look at him in the day-to-day when you're trying to make a financial decision, you're getting oil. You're getting oil every time you turn to him instead of turn to something else. We get oil every time we just decide, like, God, I know that you're better than any of this. I'm going to look to you instead. We get oil every time that something bad happens or we go through heartbreak, and we just say, God, you're good. Like, I'm not going to be swayed. I'm going to remain steadfast because I know that you're good. So, it's like friendship. We choose him when it's hard. We're there for him when it's hard. He's there for us when it's hard. We're there for him when we come to him when we want to celebrate something. It's like when something happens to you and you've been asking the Lord for a long time and you're like, God, I can't believe that I got this. So that kind of brings me to my next point. Point 2, what is friendship? So you guys all have friends. We all have friends in our lives. Like, what makes a good friend? What do you look for in a good friend? And you can answer that question. If you want to, I guess. Jackie?
Which one?
I'm just calling on you to break the ice, don't worry. I know you.
Okay, I would say, like, just intimate time, quality time.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good quality time.
Yeah. Somebody that shows up in every season.
Yeah.
Like, what is friendship? You think the friends that you have in your lives that are sticking around are the ones that have seen you go through it. They're the ones that have seen you walk in really high seasons too, where you're like, man, I'm getting everything. Like, this is so good. Like, life's good. I have nothing to worry about. I got money in the bank. I live at a good home. I have great friends. My family's awesome. And, like, all these great things are happening. The Lord's, it's like in a season where the Lord just pours out blessing, and that's all you see. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes it's just like, man, everything's so good. Especially when you first get saved. Everything's so good. At least that was for me. I was like, man, nothing can take me down. Mm-hmm. And it's like, when you have a good friend beside you, you know that you can call them and just say, guys, like, I'm not doing so well right now, or this happened, or like when you go through something, you can just like call these people and say, I just need somebody to listen, or I need help. For example, I have a friend that just lost her job, and she calls me and she's like, this is what happened. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm not in the right space. Like, I don't know, I don't have the finances to live. Like, I have unemployment, but I don't know what to do. Why am I here? And she's a believer, so she was like, I know God's good, but like, I don't know what I'm doing here anymore. And I was like, girl, like, it's okay. Like, I got you. Like, I'll pray for you, and we'll be there for each other. And it was that thing of, like, she came to me asking because she knew she had a friend in me. Same with when I've gone through hard things. I've gone to all these guys in the room. Like, I'm not gonna be there today. I'm going through it today. Like, and they're the ones that don't look at me any differently. So, Jesus wants that with us. Point A. So Jesus actually wants real friendship with us. We have friends here in the natural, but Jesus wants friendship with us. He made us for it. And not only does he want it, he delights in our friendship. When we come weak before him, our intimacy with him only grows. It's in those moments when our real faith is revealed. So he beckons us to come, guys. Like, he's like, I want to be your friend. It's like, if you've ever been new to a school, or like, I've never moved when I was in grade school, but going to 5th grade and going to high school, I would bawl my eyes out. Like, I was so terrified. I was like, people aren't gonna like me. Like, I'm scared. I'm a little kid. They're gonna bully me. I'm small. Like, what are they gonna do to me? Blah, blah, blah. And then I just remember my cousin was always 3 grades ahead of me. So when I was a 5th grader, she was an 8th grader, and I was a freshman, she was a senior. So she'd come to me and be like, hey, you're okay. Like, you're gonna be fine here. You're gonna have friends. Like, you don't have to beg. Like, you're okay. She would always just affirm me. Same with Jesus. He's coming to us, and he's like, I want to be your friend. Can we be friends? Like, can we hang out? Can we spend some time together? Can we spend some good quality time together? So point B, we all know what it takes to be a friend, but we can oftentimes just see Jesus as a master or a leader or whatever you want. Jesus wants us to know him as his friends and his bride, the ones who have gotten as close to his heart as possible. Like I can't be in a relationship with my husband if I don't know his heart. Like I can't sustain my relationship with my husband if I don't get to know his heart or what moves him. I can't continue to go closer to him if I'm not asking him questions, if I'm not coming close to his heart also. Same with the Lord. If I'm not continuously pressing in and getting to know his heart, even if I've read a verse 6,000 times, I'm getting oil every time that I ask him, okay, well, God, you've showed me this psalm forever. Like, what else are you saying? Why can't I move out of it? We don't want to move too quickly with the Lord. We want to know, like, what it's like to be with him. Like, when you're sitting with somebody and you're telling them and spilling your guts out to them or telling them, like, oh, this happened today, blah, blah, blah. You don't just want them to nod their head and move on with the conversation. Like when you come to somebody and trust somebody with something, like, you want them to ask questions. You want to be asked, like, okay, well, how'd that make you feel? Like, you got this promotion, how'd that feel? Or, like, oh my gosh, this guy asked you out, how'd that make you feel? Like, oh my gosh, this happened, how'd that make you feel? Or, like, hey, you just went through a lot. How are you feeling? How are you doing, truly? So we need to be close to his heart. We can't just be roaming around like, oh yeah, I know Jesus. I have enough oil in my lamp. It's fine. It's cool. I'm doing great. No, like, there's something so beautiful when we're just staying desperate for him. When we're staying desperate for the Lord. Friendship. It's friendship. When I'm not just going to disappear from my friends just because I'm like, whatever. And, like, there are times, yes, when you need to be alone in the natural. But when we're with the Lord, it's like we're always with him. He lives inside of us. We're always with him. And if I'm not getting to know this man, if I'm not getting to know the Holy Spirit, if I'm not diving deep into the scriptures, if I'm not asking him in the day-to-day with the people that I'm interacting with, when I go into the grocery store and I interact with the cashier, when I walk somewhere or eat somewhere and I'm taking care of somebody or they're taking care of me, am I kind to them? It's getting to know his heart for every circumstance and every situation. For example, we were house hunting for the longest time, and every time we were like, I don't know. And if it was something where we had settled because we were like, yeah, this will work, I just want to get out of my current place, we would have missed out on the greatest thing that the Lord gave to us. Like, we are actually living in a promise fulfilled. Like, we just moved, guys. God is amazing. Be specific with your prayers. Little side tangent. So yeah, keep getting to know him. There's so much more to know about him. You can never get to know enough about the Lord. Same with my friends. Like, I've known Irina longer than I've known my husband, and like there's stuff with both of them that I do not know yet. You know, like I don't know anything about them hardly, and it's only been a couple years. You know, so I'm like, okay, God, there's more to know about you, and I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I can get overwhelmed by how much I don't know about the Lord. That sometimes I'm like, I quit. Like, I'm done reading. I'm just gonna close my eyes. Like there's just that much to know about the Lord. Like, we have to stay curious. Like, curiosity is going to keep us going in relationship with him. So I want to give an example. You guys have been in the internship, 2 weeks now? This is your third? Mm-hmm. So you guys have probably been a part of a worship with the word set, right?
Yes.
If you haven't been coming around here, those people are probably in the same verse that they've been in for like 6 months. That's what I mean when there's still more to get to know about the Lord. There's one time we were singing that song of Solomon for 6 months, Jim. Like, it was quite a good chunk of time. So you think like, oh, I know the verse. Like, I know that. But I don't know him. I don't know the verse. Like gosh, like this is just one thing that blows my mind about God, is that there's still so much that he's tying around within the word. There's still so much that he's trying to show you. He's like, yeah, and when I say that you are altogether lovely, there's no flaw in you. Like, I have so much scripture to back it up. Do you want to look at that? Like, do you know that in your spirit that I don't find a flaw in you? Do you know in your spirit that I've made you perfect? Like, we do not even have the slightest glimpse of who God is. And the moment that we do, that's when we become like the foolish and we say, I know enough. He came, he died, he's coming back. That's the gospel. I don't need to read Revelation. Who cares anyway? You know, like I might, we're talking about this, like, I don't know. Am I even going to be there? Do I need to read it? Like, once we start to get to know him, you're only here because he invited you into it. We're only I've done an internship. I did two at one time. Don't do that. Whose idea was that? But anyway, it was awesome. But still, like, you're only here because the Lord brought you here. Like, not everybody says, I'm going to give up, 12, 13 hours in the prayer room to just go hang out, 10 to 13? I don't know what it is nowadays. But like you're giving up that time when you can be literally doing anything else. You could be going watching a movie with your loved ones. You could be calling up a friend that lives out of town. You could be doing anything. Like now, on a Friday night between 6 and 10 p.m., you guys are in the prayer room when other people are probably like, let's go to dinner. Like I have tomorrow off. Like I can stay out late. That is oil. That's amazing. You guys, that's seriously the most incredible thing you can be doing with your time. So we want to see Jesus as a friend. We want to know him. Like he wants us to know him. So be curious. Point D. We buy oil by getting to know him ourselves. We can't get oil vicariously through our pastors, leaders, friends, or parents. How many of you guys have like had a camp high before? You know what I mean? Like you go to camp, you get saved every time you go to camp. That's what you get. Cool. Well, so I grew up Catholic, and I got into youth group with a Christian church because my best friend's dad started a youth group, and I was like, home life sucks. I like you guys. I trust you guys. I'll go anyway. I'm Christian. Whatever. I'm Catholic. I know the Lord. And then I felt like every year I would just be living from camp high to camp high. I remember we went to camp for the first time, and I'd never known what it was like to cry like that before in my life. I was like, oh my gosh, like, life is bad, and blah, blah. And there's, like, I needed those seasons. Those seasons led me to where I am now, right? But I took that oil every single season. I would go, okay, summer camp, I had this emotional account with the Lord. It was the best time of my life, guys. And then I'd go home, and I'd be like, yeah, camp high. And then I would tell people I'm a Christian while not showing them that I was a Christian, and it just really made things messy. You know what I mean? You ever been there? Like, you're like, yeah, I know Jesus. Like, come on. So, and then it gets to winter, and the same thing happens again. But it was a shorter camp, so, not as much oil, So you just keep going. But you can't live off of that. Like, we can't live off what somebody else worked for. We can't live off of what somebody else paid the price for. We can't live off of what Irina says. We can't live off of what Zach and Jim say when they're teaching. We can't live off of that when we come into this room. We can't live off of that when you go into life. Like, one day, the physical internships, like, the Lord's going to stop calling you into them.
Right.
And you have, like, it's like graduating high school or college, like, whatever you did last. It's like, well, what am I going to do without school? What am I going to do without somebody leading me and guiding me? What am I going to do without somebody telling me what to do all the time? And it's the oil that you're forming now and staying persistent in that's going to lead you there, because you're going to get so hungry for him that you're going to be like, what am I going to do? What can I do now? Like, I remember coming out of the internship, and I felt like every internship that I did or was a part of or led, something just hit the fan. Every time, without fail. Like, with every internship that I've been a part of, something hit the fan. My dog needed double knee surgery. I had health issues. Like, things were happening. I was getting married. So it was like, everything was just like, okay, it's too much. I don't want to do it anymore. And the Lord's like, but will you just try? like, come on. Like, he knows that these things are going to happen, and he knows it's going to be hard. But when you have oil in your lamp and you have an insatiable hunger, like, it's kind of hard to not want more oil in your lamp. You know what I mean? Like, you come into this room and you keep coming back. You keep coming back. You could quit a week ago and say, it's too much time. I don't know if I want to do it. Halfway through, you might want to quit. Everybody wants to quit halfway through. You guys have probably been told this. Everybody wants to quit halfway through. But you keep coming back. That's because you have this thing inside of you that's telling you, no, stay. I'm beckoning you to come. Song Solomon 2, just come with me. Dance on the hilltops with me. Do not hear me singing. Like, he's beckoning us to come away with him. And that's how we get oil for ourselves, when we say yes. Not when somebody else says yes for us and does it for us and tell us what they went through. Like, your friends cannot steal the oil that you are cultivating here when you go and tell them what happened in the internship, or what happened when you went to the restaurant and the Lord told you to prophesy over your waiter. You know what I mean? Like, you can't, like, that's not oil for anybody else. That's oil between you and the Lord. And at the end of the day and at the end of the age, that's what's going to matter. Yeah. So what sustains friendship? So these are not the only ways that you can sustain friendship with the Lord. These are just 2 ways that I'm going to emphasize on. Ready? So 2 big ways we can sustain friendship with the Lord. Believing that he has already called us friends, and also our daily yes to him in obedience. So John 15:15, I put that verse in there. It says, no longer do I call you servants, for a servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends. For all things that I have heard from my Father, I have made known to you. Just let that sit for a second. Like, even if you need to read that verse again. Even writing this teaching, I'm like, I have to remind myself of this every single day. Because the Lord has already called me his friend. He's already called me his friend. He's already looked at me like, Mercedes, I care about you. Just pick up the phone, Like, come sit with me outside. Go to the prayer room. Everything just feels really crazy. Your house isn't unpacked. Go to the prayer room, Like, just let that sit with you. before we move on, Jesus calls me a friend. Jesus calls me, Mercedes, a friend. Jesus calls you a friend. Like, you can't earn that. That's not earned by him. Like, he already did that when he went to the cross. He already calls us friends. He hasn't overlooked you. He hasn't said, like, cool, so now you have to do this, this, and this, and this, and maybe we'll be friends. You turned to him one day, and you said, I've had enough. I've had enough of my life. I remember when I was on the mall in D.C., that's when I really gave my life to the Lord, and I was like, I've had enough. I'm tired of living this life I'm living. God, I want to live for you. Like, I've been having it all wrong. I've been living from encounter to encounter and expecting this to fill me up, but it's about you, and I know that now. He called me a friend first. I wouldn't be able to give my life to him if he didn't already choose me. So then I did that, and then we repent, right? Like, all of us have repented of our sin, and we still do it all the time. It's not a one-time and done. Mm-hmm. And we turn, and then we're like, okay, God, but you've called me a friend. So now we're here in this middle space, and we're like, okay, you love me. You called me a friend. I do not have to earn this love. I've already been given this love.
Yeah, that's so good.
That is the first and foremost thing, in this teaching at least, that is going to sustain your friendship with God, because it takes God to love God. You'll hear us say it in this house all the time. It takes God to love God, because we can't do what we do in here and build night and day prayer, 24 hours, 7 days a week. Like, that's kind of insane. That's a lot of time. Okay, like, you can't do that without friendship with Jesus. You can't. You can't sit before him for hours without knowing that he's your friend, or else you're just going to sit before somebody. God, come and heal my heart. God, come and do this for me. God, come through like this for me. And you're just asking him, spewing things out. And when he wants your heart, he wants your honesty with him. Like, he already has called you his friend. So then that brings us to our part. So I'm on point C on page 2. We already know that God's called us friends. Jesus has looked at us and said, no, you're already my friend. And our part is that we get to say yes and walk in obedience. Point C. We get to draw near to him and spend time with him. So we went from salvation and repentance and having this moment of, oh, God, you love me. That's why we got saved. Remember the time you got saved? I remember I've never felt anything in my heart like the moment when I gave my life to the Lord. Like, that was a moment that I was like, oh my gosh, I've got it all wrong in life. And like, you start to feel like this, like, oh my gosh, sometimes, like, you know, you're slain in the spirit, or you're like talking to somebody, or somebody's evangelized to you, and you're like, oh my gosh, I want this. Like, it's because the love of the Father came for you first. So now, coming from that yes, we've said yes, we're like, okay, God, I want to give you my whole life and follow you for all my days. And now is the yes part. It's the everyday. It's the walking in obedience with him. Even like in John 15, he says, like, you are my friends when you obey my commands. We get to say yes to him now. We don't have to be chained to this guy. We're not like, okay, well, now I can't do anything fun. Like, I've had the most fun since I've started to know Jesus. Like, when I was doing life before the Lord, there's nothing that can make me want to go back. Not a single thing. And I'm sure that there are things that you can recollect in your mind too, where you're like, man, like, I can't go back to that. You know, I felt depressed. I felt anxious. I felt like, man, this is the worst time in the world. Nothing's worth living. Everything sucks. You know, you walk around kind of mopey, even if you have like this false facade of happiness, and maybe you're somebody that came from money before. You know what I mean? Like, it's like there's nothing like knowing the Lord. There's nothing like it. There's absolutely nothing like knowing the Lord and walking in obedience with him. So when he's like, tell your soul to praise, I'm gonna be like, yep, yes, Jesus. You know, like, okay, well, go take a rest, go take a nap. Yes, Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, when we do that stuff. And it's friendship. Think about friendship. Sometimes you kind of bicker with your friends. You're like, sometimes you bicker with your spouse. Sometimes you're like, I don't want to do that. Don't tell me what to do. That's a famous line around here, too. Like, don't tell me what to do. Like, no, I know what I'm doing. And then you come back and you're like, yeah, you were right. Like, you know, like, it's like, it's that real life wrestle. Like, the more that we choose to say yes to him, sometimes it's delayed. Sometimes the Lord knows that you're going to probably say no the first time. But as long as we keep walking with him and we're like, okay, God, no, you're right. Because he's going to show you, yeah, like, it's not up to you. It's up to me. And trust me. Trust me. So when we prioritize our time with the Lord, we get to know his voice more. We get to know his voice. John 10 talks about how his sheep knows his voice. We know the Lord's voice the more that we prioritize time with him. The more that we say no to early morning coffee or whatever, like until we meet with the Lord first. Or we say no to certain friendships or limit them as we're trying to walk our life with the Lord, because we know what that's going to lead us to. It's every time that you have listened to that little nudge, even if it feels like, I don't want to do that. Like, he's like, no, you're my friend. Like, you're a really good friend, Mercedes. Thank you for doing that. Like, he's not evil. We know that. We read that in the Bible, but I feel like sometimes we just need to hear he's not a murderer. He's not a bad guy. He's not a criminal. Like, he's not going to tell you to do something that's not going to bring you closer to him. He's not. He's not going to put something in you so you could be afraid and do something that's really awful. Like, when you get conviction and you feel nervous, that's not the same as feeling afraid, guys. Like he's going to ask us to do some costly things, and it's going to be the best price you could ever pay. So Matthew 6 says that when you seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, then all these things will be added unto you. So seek him first. When we say yes to him, we seek him first. When we say yes to him, we're giving literally our whole heart to him, even if it's the smallest, weakest, I don't want to do this, yes. Like, it's obedience unto him, and that's when he calls us friends, and we get to draw near with him in that. So above all, point E, Christ is our reward. Knowing him and being known by him is what makes our soul come truly alive. It's what we are made for, intimacy with him. We are made for it. You are made to have intimacy with the Lord. You are made to love him in return. You are made for love and to love in return. You are made for this friendship that the Lord is inviting you into. You are made for this relationship. You are made to worship him. You are made to love him. Like, we're made for it. And it's like when there's something that's on your heart, like a career path, and when you think of a dream and you go for it, you're like, man, this is it. This is amazing. Because you're doing what you feel like you were made for, right? Like when if you love the business world or City Refuge, like you're doing the job that you want to do, and you're like, man, this is the best thing in the whole world. That's what saying yes to Jesus is like. That's what loving him is, because you're made for it. So when you're doing what you're made for, you come the most alive. Whatever you want to do, like it's unto knowing Jesus. The call is Jesus. The call is knowing him. The call is loving him. So I want to I'm going to capitalize on one point that how we can get oil and sustain our friendship with Jesus and love him and do what we were made for. And that's buying oil through suffering. So look, no one wants to suffer. No one's asking for it. I don't know about you, but I didn't sign up for Jesus. Like, yep, give it to me. Lay it on me. Like, just hit me, Lord. Like, no one asks for that. We know it's going to happen, but we don't ask for it. We're not like, yep, give it to me. Or like, I don't know if any of you guys have social media or anything, but there's this thing where somebody's calling heaven and they're like, Lord, can you stop giving your toughest battles to your toughest soldiers? I'm tired of being one of them. Like, you're like, no one's like wanting it. No one's wanting it. But in point A, the Lord never tells us that we will not suffer, that we won't run into suffering in our lives. It's actually one thing that is promised in our life in walking with the Lord. But he does tell us that we do not have to fear. We can take heart, persevere, and let the suffering have its full work in us to produce patience and to have hope. James 1:2-4. My brethren, I count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. Have any of you guys ever actually looked up the definition of patience? I did one day, and it kind of blew my mind, because we hear it our whole lives, like, if I want patience, then the Lord's going to give me a reason to be patient. Like, I'm not going to ask for patience. I'm not going to ask. We've all been there. I'm not going to ask for patience. But patience means the capacity to accept or tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset.
Wow. That's so good.
So, it speaks for itself, really. So count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience, the ability to accept or tolerate the suffering that you're going through. Count it all joy. Count it all joy. We are not promised that we will not suffer. In fact, that we are promised that we will. But we get to know him in his suffering. We get to just know that we don't have to fear. We get to accept what's coming in our way, but we're not going to let it overcome us. You get to overcome. Take heart, for I have overcome the world. John 14. The Lord's already overcome these things for us. He's already suffered first. He suffered himself. So who's to say that we won't do it when we ask to look like him, right? So there was one time I remember my friend and I were sitting in her front porch, and we were talking about Matthew 25. This was 2 years ago, and in my notes on the side it was he really delayed, or was he just delayed to them? Patience and suffering. Sometimes you're thinking, I think, I don't know if I can go through it any longer. And that's exactly when the Lord's like, keep going. Keep going. I'm right here. Like, he's not like, keep going. You're so far away, I know, but you're almost there. Like, you're right here at the threshold of something when you're like, I can't. Because maybe he's not delayed. Maybe he's really not delayed in our circumstance, but we think he's delayed. We think, God, I told you that I want, like, I don't know about you guys, I put dates on prayers before, and sometimes the Lord's like, not this time. You know, like I'm like, okay, well, by this time, we're going to be here doing this thing. Or by this time, we're going to do this and this and this. But he's like, okay, no, like, I'm still teaching you things in the midst of your suffering. Have patience. Don't complain. Don't get gruntle or get angry about it. Just sit with me in it. Just know that every step that you take in praising me and looking at me means that you will keep going. It's like that game where people are, or like you see in movies or something where you close your eyes and they're like, follow my voice, follow my voice. It's like, I feel like sometimes in suffering it feels like we're going blindly because everything just sucks. But the Lord's like, just follow my voice, follow my voice, follow my voice. Or like when people hold the baby or something and you're looking at sometimes they don't really look back at you, but it's kind of that concept of when you're looking at the right spot, you won't lose. You won't lose. You look at Jesus and you just incline your ear to him, he's going to guide you. You're not going to sway. You're not going to move to the right or to the left. Like you're going to know his voice and he's going to keep pulling you. So, getting oil involves the crushing of something. Point B. In our suffering, it feels pretty painful. I feel like, okay, there's something on top of me and I can't get rid of it. I feel like I'm just oozing out at the seams, God. Like, I'm done. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. But we get oil when something is crushed. When you think of, essential oils, we got a lot of those around here. They're out there. Like, you only get oil like that because they've been so crushed. It's not the juice. It's oil. It's from the skin itself. Like, but it's amazing, and it's healing, and it's wonderful. Like olives, we use olive oil, all that stuff. Getting oil involves the crushing of something. So when we think about the wise and foolish virgins, we're going to bring it back to Matthew 25. We're actually seeing the reward that the wise virgins got. We're seeing that they went through it with the Lord. They were patient. And even in the delay, in the moment of the bridegroom coming, they were patient. They were like, I have oil in my lamp. They overpacked. I'm a chronic overpacker. Are you guys? I am. Yes, I am. I pack for a weekend in a big suitcase and it looks like I'm moving there. My husband's not. I am. Better to have it and not need it is what they always say. So, I think of how when we're, if we're looking at the wise virgins, we're thinking of people that overpacked. I'm not going to use this when we go places, don't worry. but anyway, they overpacked. They had their vessels and they had their lamp. They had their extra oil and they had their oil. And I'm sure that they had something for water. Like they're probably hands are full. But when they've been so patient with the Lord to where they can handle a little bit longer before He comes, they've let things sit. They've let things happen to them and still have chosen the Lord. Like he was delayed for one more moment, and they still were like, but I know you're coming. I know this is your day. Like you're not gonna not come. I know that. Or else they wouldn't have had the oil in their lamps like the foolish did. They were like, I have enough. He's not gonna be delayed. Whatever, I have enough. But we want to be found with oil in our lamps, which means that we are probably gonna have to go through it. But I'm gonna tell you that the Lord will reward you when you suffer with Him. Let's look at part C. God rewards us when we suffer with Him. God comes closer as we go through the valleys with Him and still look into His eyes and say, I love you, you're still good, and your leadership is perfect. I've suffered a lot of loss in my life and a lot of suffering. I don't think I could tell you guys this if I didn't. But I remember the first loss that I experienced after I gave my life to the Lord. So I had lost friends, grandparents, like close friends to cancer. And in 2020, right before the lockdown, I lost one of my closest friends who had just gotten saved a few months prior. He had a brain tumor, really bad cancer. They said that he was healed, and it ended up coming back really aggressive. So I remember the week before showing up. He's on hospice. He's at home. He does not look like himself because the cancer took over this whole side of his face. And I just remember being so filled with faith. And you have the faith of a mustard seed, the Lord's going to move mountains. So I was like, oh yeah, like the Lord told me He's going to heal. He's going to heal him. And I told my friends are prophetic. Like this is going to work. So I'm there like having this expectation, which is good that's for somebody to get healed. But I was like, there's no way he's not gonna. So I laid my hands on him, me, his mom, all of us, and we're like praying for him to be healed. Like I'm like, God, just come and heal him. Like just show up. Just come and heal the tumor. Blah blah blah. The next week he died, and I was like, I had two choices. I could have been like, God, I'm done. You told me you were gonna heal this guy. You told my friends you were gonna heal this guy. Like there were some times where I was like, you told me, but I was never offended. You know, there's a difference. There's a difference between being like, no, God, but you told me now, I'm disappointed, and that's okay, that's normal, that's life. But it's different when you look at him and accuse him and get offended with him and say, no, you're a murderer. You took him. This was your child. This and this, like, there's a difference when you get offended. And I've had my fair share of getting offended because of things that did not go my way. Trust me, like, just because I'm talking about suffering does not mean I'm a master at suffering, because it still sucks. But I just remember still sitting there, and for the first time, I really knew the Lord as a comforter. For the first time, I really knew, like, God, I've been through this mountain before. Because I had lost, so this guy's name was Devin, D-E-V-I-N, and I had lost my best friend in high school, senior year, D-E-V-E-N, same month, within the same week, just years apart. So just, like, how the Lord used that to look at me and be like, I'm not taking this from you. Like, these kids knew me. Like, you're not missing much. They're actually in the best place that they can be, so it's okay to take heart and be okay. Grief, this is really hard and this is really sad. But what you're going through right now, you're going to just see how close I am to you. And I got to sit with him in it and be like, okay. So same thing. I texted my friends for the first time. I was able to feel like I have emotions and I'm allowed to process them. Like, this is healthy. So I text them. And I'm like, this is going on. And then my friends that are also like our little group of friends, the other two are not believers. One's a prodigal. I'm really believing she's coming back to the Lord. And one has never known the Lord her entire life. She actually thinks it's stupid to believe. She's one of those people that's like, good for you, but like, not for me. But just seeing the way that the Lord showed up and like being able to mourn with them, like I felt comforted. And I really hope that they felt that too. But I was like, you know what? Like, it's okay, guys. Like, I promise you, whether you believe it or not, like he's doing great. He might not have been healed here, but he's healed on the other side of heaven. And I know we're going to see him the way that we've known him. You know, like, it's just when the Lord says that he's going to heal somebody, he still does it on the other side of heaven. That doesn't mean that they're not healed. It's just not in the way that we thought it was going to be. So I saw the Lord come really close to me. I was like, this is insane. Like, I'm mourning, but I feel okay because I know that the Lord's with me. So then fast forward a week, it's his memorial service, and my town is this big. Where I'm from is this big. So all of this big town came to this memorial, and we're all sitting there. And we get there, and I'm like just sitting there, and I'm crying, but I'm realizing that I'm not angry. There's a difference. Like, I get really angry, and I can get hot-headed and hot tears, where this time I was like, my friend, I want to miss you. But like, knowing that he knew the Lord, I felt comforted. Like, I'm going through this. You went through a lot worse, feels like. You're like, this is not good. But it's just, I know that he's not suffering, and I know that he's good, and I know God's good. I know that he did not take him away. Like, he healed him. So I'm out here, and I'm thinking that in the pew, and I'm listening to the pastor, and I'm just like, God, like, I'm so thankful to know you. I'm thankful that I know you. I'm so thankful that I know you. We get done with the memorial, and there was a burn service. So I don't know if you guys know the burn. It's pretty similar to what we do here. But they sometimes will do like a 12-hour gathering once every quarter or something. So I was part of that. That was early 2020. I wasn't even here yet. I didn't even know this place existed, which is crazy. But I remember being like, I'm still going to go. I'm going to go to the burn. I'm going to be on a set. And I'm going to see what the Lord does. Like, really, what else am I going to do? All my other friends wanted to go out for drinks and get drunk and do all that stuff. And I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm going to go. So I drove up to Sac. And on my hour drive, I just remember it being silent with the Lord. I was like, God, why am I going? Like, I'm tired. I've been crying. This sucks. And I just felt like he was kind of silent the whole time. He was just inviting me to sit in it and sit in what I was feeling. That's part of the suffering, too. Sometimes it's hard to sit in your feelings, right? You don't always want to sit in your feelings. You want to be funny or do something different. But I felt like suffering in that moment. And then I get to the church, and I go up for my first 2 hours. And same thing, I felt like I was just pushing through in the first 2 hours. I was like, God, God, I love you, I love you, I love you. Like, when you walk in the room, everything changes. And I'm just singing these songs with all my heart. And then hour 3, Doyle Gardner comes up. You'll see him on Friday nights. He's amazing. He looked at me and he's like, you should just stay on for the next 2 hours. Do you want to? And I was like, yeah, I'm not going anywhere. Like, I'm not done with the Lord. So we get up there, and all of a sudden, like, it's like I crossed the threshold into breakthrough where the Lord was like, I'm everything that you need. Like, I'm everything that you need. This is so hard, and it's like things are going to be hard, but I'm everything that you need. I love you. I'm proud of you for showing up, even though all you wanted to do is go cry and do nothing. I'm proud of you that you're here. And all of a sudden, like, we're playing, songs are happening, and Doyle just goes into this musical thing, and I just start telling him, I start singing on the mic, like, you alone, there's nothing better. You alone, you're all I long for. And as soon as I sing that, it felt like the whole room was feeling what I was feeling. You know those moments where, like, all of a sudden it feels like the whole room is literally doing that, like, in unison with each other. We're all like, life sucks, but we still have AC. So, you guys want to know who said that? I gotta give credit where credit is due. We were in Forerunner equipping one day, and David Slager came. He's from IHOP KC, okay? And one of our friends asked, like, what do you do in a wilderness season? And he goes, oh, you're not in the wilderness. Life just sucks. At least you still have AC. Like, he's like, you guys have nothing to complain about. You live in California. You see what you got around here? So anytime we're going through something, we got to remember, life just sucks. You still have AC. Anyway. So I started singing that, and it, like, but it really felt like for one of the first times, this is probably one of the encounters with the Lord that I'm never gonna forget. Like, I have it on camera, and I'm so thankful that somebody recorded it. But I just remember, like, I stopped playing because my hands were shaking. I could not stop just looking straight back. Like, if I'm looking at the TV, I couldn't look at people because I felt like I was so gone in the glory with God, where I was literally, like, screaming with my heart, singing it okay with my voice, but my heart felt like it was exploding and stuff. And then my spiritual mama, Alicia, she calls me up, and she's like, Mercedes just came from her friend's funeral, and she's still here worshiping. And it felt like she gave an invitation to everybody, same thing that I'm kind of asking you in with suffering. She's like, if you've gone through it, you need to come up to the front and stuff. And I just sit there and I'm weeping. I'm like I just don't want to stop where I'm at. You know, have you ever been in that point where you're in the presence of the Lord and you're like, I don't want this to end. I don't want to get used to this. You know what I'm talking about? Think of that moment, and that's how I was feeling. Like, I was like, I don't want to move. I don't want to move. I don't want to move. Like, don't make me stop singing or whatever. So then we go back into it, and we sang that chorus for an hour. A whole hour. You know how sometimes it can feel boring to sing a song? I wanted to keep going for another hour. Sometimes we'll get in the prayer room and we'll start singing choruses, and we're like, go back into it. Like, we'll go through the cycles and we're like, go back into that one. That's the one. Keep going. And then you just can't get enough of saying it because it's not just words. It's desperation. When you've gone through something like that and you experience the same thing again, and you can still worship God, that's oil. That's oil. You're literally cultivating something that you cannot get anywhere else but when you're here. When you're here. Same thing with up here. When you're way up here and you have everything figured out and you're like, again, the blessings period, where you're like, everything's great, I'm getting everything I want. Like, I have money in my account, I don't gotta worry about my bills and stuff, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, I'm in debt. You know? Yeah. Like, it's like, when you're here and you can still be like, nothing's mine, it's all the Lord's. I'm gonna give it to him. I'm gonna give all my worship to him. God, you're worth it. I just lost one of my closest friends, and he just got to know you, but he gets to know you for eternity. God, you're good. God, I get to live this life knowing that you're good. And I just keep going, like, you alone, there's nothing better. You alone, you're all I long for. You alone, you alone, you alone, you alone. And I just couldn't stop thinking, like, why would I turn my eyes to other things? Yeah. Why? When I've seen the Lord come through like that in a moment where I felt probably the worst I felt since getting saved at that moment, that was my big first, like, suffering moment with Jesus. And I just remember being like, I can't go back. I can't. You gave it for me. You gave everything for me, God. You can't. Like, he rewards you when you suffer with him. And it might not be like, oh, God, you gave me money. Like, you know, sometimes we're like, I'm in debt. Or, God, like, I want to get married. Or, God, like, I need friends. Like, all these things where we are rewarded when we say yes to him in the darkest times of our lives, when our heart feels dead. It's like praise on your lips is like what's the thing, the resuscitator thing, that detonator, or whatever it's called. It's like the thing that's gonna, like, shock you back to life. Whatever. Nobody's gonna help me. So quiet. I don't know what it's called. Defibrillator? That thing.
I know it's a detonator.
I'm like, I didn't write it down. The praise on your lips is literally like the thing that goes clear. It's that thing. It's like, you're like, okay, like, no, God, you're good. That's breath in my lungs. Like, every time you put praise on your lips, it's like a breath of fresh A breath of fresh air. Goodness. Breath of fresh air. So, you get rewarded. You get rewarded, and it might not be the way you want to be rewarded, but you get more of him. You get all of him. You get all of him. We only love because he loved us. And what was his big act of love to us? Suffering. Suffering. The cross. Could you imagine getting whipped 36 times and having those scars in your back? Can you imagine? I can't. Or the fact that he went like a sheep to the slaughter in Isaiah 53. He didn't say a word. He didn't complain. Like, his joy was set before him in heaven already. His joy was set before him with the Lord. I remember, so this whole summer, like, we've just been going through it, you know, like, we've gone through it. But in every moment, I've been able to look at the Lord and say, okay, like, I love you. Like, there was one time we were going through something, I was having some issues, and I was like, I'm so thankful we have Jesus. Like, we're just sitting there, we're like, I'm so thankful we have Jesus, because I don't know how people do this without him. I don't know how people can suffer without him. I don't know how you can feel like you got the rug ripped out from under you and still say, I love you, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you get these moments with the Lord, guys, and you're like, when you say yes, I'm going to give you everything, you really better mean it, because he's going to take you through it. He's going to carry you through it, you know? How many of you guys have been through something that just really felt like you can't get through anymore? Like, you felt like I want to quit, you know? Like, I've wanted to quit so many times. After meeting the Lord, after encountering him, I wanted to quit so many times. And it felt like the rug was literally just torn off, and I just am flying back 8 steps. But he's good. He rewards you in your suffering. Because he was rewarded also. Well, God, I want to look like you. Suffer with me. Know me in my suffering. Choose me when you feel like you want to quit. Choose me when it feels like the chains are so tight that they're digging into your arms. Choose me when it feels like you have nothing left to give me, because that is when your real faith comes. You have real faith when you sit with the Lord in the midst of your suffering. You know what it's like to suffer. You know what it's like. Everything feels like it's the worst thing in the whole entire world. You don't even want to go to work. You're like, what's the point? I hate it here. I don't want to be here anymore. You want to run. You want to hide. Fight, flight, or freeze, right? Like, where I'm stressed, I'm done. I'm overwhelmed, I'm done. I quit. And the Lord's like, if you would just press on a little bit longer. Like, the wall is almost, like, you're moving, you're pushing against it, and it's almost down. Just push a little bit longer. Choose to know me now, because if you run away, it's going to be a lot harder next time. When we choose to know him in suffering, we're getting oil. You every time you say yes to him, when you feel like the life is over, you're getting oil. To where when he feels like he's just a little more delayed, you can wait because you have patience. Jesus went like a sheep to the slaughter. That verse wrecked me this week. I was like, oh my gosh, like, how many times can I complain? Bill Johnson, I think, talks about, like, if God sits enthroned upon my praises, then who sits enthroned upon my complaints? Right. If I'm bad-mouthing the Lord or saying things like that, like, then I'm giving more things to the enemy to use against me, so that way I get offended in my heart and believe that he's not good in my heart, so I just altogether stop suffering with him. You can't have the gospel without suffering. You can't. Sometimes well, pretty much all the time, I don't know about you guys, but when I repented of my stuff and didn't go back to it, it felt like suffering, because that's all I'd known. I'd only known self-medication, whatever makes me happy in a moment. But the Lord said, no, but if you just don't choose that and you come in and you choose holiness and you choose me and you choose the light, look what I'm going to do for you. Count it all joy. Suffering is pleasing to him when we choose him and we're patient with him. So if you go down to the scriptures, still on page 2 under F, 1 Peter 2:23-24 says, who, when he was reviled, did not revile in return. When he suffered, he did not threaten, but committed himself to him who judges righteously, who himself bore our sins in his own body on the tree, that we, having died to sin, might live for righteousness, by whose stripes you were healed. He suffered and he did nothing about it. And look at this in the prayer room, but the verses in front of it, verses 20 through 23, it says that when you are suffering and you are patient, it's pleasing to the Lord. It's pleasing to him. It's an offering to him. Like when David said that he doesn't want to give the Lord something that doesn't cost him anything. I don't want to give the Lord something that doesn't cost me anything. Like, I'm walking around, life's good. Thanks, Lord. Thanks. I know you're going to come through again. But then when I'm going through it and I'm like, everything feels like I'm starting over. I had this hope for this thing to happen and it didn't happen, God. And he's like, yeah, what are you going to do about it? I'm like, sit in this with me. I love you. I'm the comforter, remember? Remember those times where I've showed up? Remember the times that I have come close in suffering? Remember every time you chose to choose me instead of the other thing that could make you happy? Do you know the joy that you got in that? Do you know the joy that I got in that? He did not make a peep. He learned obedience by the things which he suffered. Like the Father also saw him fit to suffer. He suffered. He went through everything you and I went through. He suffered loss, betrayal. He suffered a lot of things that you and I have gone through, and he can sympathize with us. So he can sympathize with us. We're not serving a God that doesn't know what we've gone through. We're not serving a God that doesn't know that we're going to go through suffering. We're serving the God that says, like, you will face trials of many kinds, but take heart. So he's the one that's going to carry us through. It's a heart that says, I'll do whatever it takes to get to know you, that gets oil. It's the gold refined by fire. The virgins told, the wise virgins told the foolish virgins to go buy oil for yourself. Go buy oil. Go do the costly things to get to know him, because he might be delayed, but I know he's coming. I know he's coming. If you're going through something right now, I just know that I'm coming. This feels really hard. Even the internship is suffering. You're sitting in there and you're like, I'm bored and I'm tired. It feels like suffering. It doesn't have to be this, I've suffered loss, I've lost this person, or this happened to me. Sometimes it's literally like traffic. I hate traffic. I have road rage and I have to close my mouth all the time. I will get road rage and then I'll continue singing like I'm not crazy. I'll get road rage and be like, get out of my way! And they'll be like, like, it's like nothing ever happened. You know what I mean? It's like, that's suffering. All of it is. Like, every time I probably yell something like, you suck to somebody, then I gotta be like, no you don't. I literally will be in the car and be like, no you don't, God bless you, but get out of my way. Like, you know what I mean? Like any moment of suffering, and when we choose Jesus, oil. He's like, okay. Or you filled up that one, what's next? So your lamp is full, do you want your vessel full? Like, let's go through it. Let's take a walk through life and choose me in every aspect of it. So page 3. Point H. When we have been so gripped by the love of God, it's hard to not go to any length to know him and be with him. When our hearts fall deeply in love with Jesus in secret, we find life to the fullest. Think of the times when you've just spent with him and you accidentally went over and maybe you were running late for work. That happens to me sometimes. Think about times where you've been in your bed or something and you're asking him to come into your dreams and all of a sudden you get caught up in conversation with him, right? Like, think about times where, like, you're driving and you just choose to put on worship music and talk to him instead of scream lyrics that are not about him. Just think of even those little yeses that you've given to him. When you've been gripped by God, that's the fruit of it. When you've been gripped by love itself, you can't help but go to any length to love him. You can't. You've been through too much already. Why go back now? You've seen him. You all of a sudden are just talking to him like you would pick up the phone and call your friend when you're making a long drive. He's your friend. And you're so gripped by him that you can't stop talking to him. That's when you know you have a friend with somebody. You can just, like, hang out with them. Sometimes you can just hang out with them and be on your phone. You can have sleepovers or what, you know what I mean? Like these are the people that you can just hang out with. Like Jesus. Jesus is the closest friend we can have and will ever have. He is the one that we will see in worship for the rest of our days and more. When we have been so gripped by him, it's hard not to go through anything with him. It's hard. It's hard to do this internship without him because we came here for him. But it's hard. It's hard to leave sometimes. You'll notice that there are days where you're like, I don't want to leave. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to go to sleep. Maybe I'll just push it till midnight. Like, sometimes it's just going to be like, oh, it's been an hour. Sometimes it's going to be like, it's only been an hour. Like, but you've been so gripped by him but you can't help to be with him, but be with him. That's how you know you've gotten some oil in your lamp. The fruit of it is that you can't stop talking to him. You can't make a big life decision without asking him about it. You can't go somewhere or talk to people or even hang out with friends that probably aren't the best influences without hearing the Holy Spirit talking to him about it. Or saying, God, how do I love these friends that don't know you, without making it seem like, oh, I'm going to push everything on you, blah, blah, blah. But, like, you can still be friends with these people and love them and show them Jesus, but love them by also having boundaries. Like, when we say yes to the Lord in that, that's friendship with him. And then point I, knowing that he is a reward keeps us patient in suffering, full of hope with a resounding yes in our spirit no matter the cost. God is our exceedingly great reward. The Lord told that to Abraham. He said, I am your exceedingly great reward. When we know that he is our reward, we can run the race set out for us. We can keep going. When we know that he is our reward, it's like an endless thing. Like it's like, okay, God, you're my reward, but I've seen you come through so I can keep going. It's like you're going on a long run and you're like pushing through. And you're like, okay, if I can just do one more. Have you guys seen Hacksaw Ridge? Dang it, okay. Well, there's a soldier in there, and he's like, God, just give me one more. He's like rescuing all these soldiers. He vowed to never pick up a gun. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. If not, watch the movie, but with tissues because you will cry. So he's up in the middle of the night, and he's trying to go out in the battlefield and rescue these people. He's like, God, if you can just give me one more. Same thing. God, if you could just give me one more. I'm tired. I want to go. I want to leave, but just give me one more. Give me a little more of you. That's what he's doing. He's like, God, give me one more. Let me say one more. Think about that in the context of your own life when you're going through something. I can just go through one more. Take me through one more, God. Take me through one more. Take me. I know you're going to lead me. I know that my life laid down on your altar meant a daily yes to you, God. In suffering, I will choose you because you are the best thing that I could get. You are my reward. Jesus, you went to the cross for the joy set before you. You endured death and took my sin and my shame on the cross because you knew the reward set before you and out of love. You did it because you know where you're going and you know who's coming after you. You know. You knew. So when you know that the Lord is your reward, you can do anything. It's really hard to not keep going when you know the Lord is your reward because you've seen everything else. Take the time in your day to see, man, God, you pulled me out of so much nasty stuff. How can I not choose you in this moment? So I want to present an invitation. I'm landing this now. Don't worry. This is the invitation that the Lord gives us to be his friends, to show up like we would in normal life, to say yes to him after knowing that he loves me first, and to sit in everything with him, every season, giving him praise. In these 12 weeks, you're going to learn a lot. It's going to feel like a fire hose. You're going to spend a lot of time in the prayer room. You're going to leave this internship with not as much time in the prayer room. It's all going to be different. But the invitation is to ask him about himself. It's the invitation because if we want to know Jesus, then we need to know Jesus and not just talk about us. Talk about our prayer list. The prayer list he wants, give him the prayer list. Be specific with your prayers. I will say that till I'm blue in the face. But get to know him for yourself. Sit in there, and some days if you feel like you've been distracted and you have the time, stay 5 minutes longer. Push it if you can. Because this is the time where you can give the Lord this when you've already said yes to saying no to other things in your schedule. Take advantage of it. He is the best. The absolute best. There's no one like him. No one else is worthy. Revelation 4:8. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord. Holy. Nobody else is holy like him. If you go into Revelation 5, you'll see that he was the only one worthy to open the scroll, a lamb as though he was slain. The suffering lamb, the only one worthy. He is so worth our time, guys. He is so worth it. When you hit that midpoint and you feel like I want to quit, you can push through because he's the best. He's the best. He loves you. There's nothing that he wants to hide from you. He wants to give you himself. Is the more that we open ourselves up to him and ask him about himself, he's gonna give us him. Deep calls unto deep. Psalm 42. We want more of him. So let him come close. Allow him to. I'm telling you that in the prayer room, you're gonna get uncomfortable with some feelings that you didn't know you had stuck in your heart. You're gonna realize that. For example, I did leadership and I was like, I'm not as good I did leadership school and I was like, wow, I'm not as good of a leader as I thought I was. I did my internship and I was like, wow, I do not know the Lord like I thought I do. It's an ongoing cycle. Let him in. Let him in. As he is also inviting you to, I'm going to invite you to, just let him in. Get in the prayer room. Ask him about the verses on these notes. Ask him about what he was thinking when he was suffering. Ask him how to suffer with him, suffer like him. Ask him when there are times that he showed up in suffering that you might not have seen because you weren't just paying attention. It's normal. Just show him ask him who he is as a comforter. Ask him who he is as a friend. Ask him where he's been in moments or even in this moment, like when you're in the prayer room and you're like, God, I'm kind of bored and distracted. Maybe somebody's not singing on key, like, it happens. Like, just, God, I don't want to be distracted, like, but still tell me more of you. Like, let your word come alive. I've read this verse a bazillion times. Let this word come alive. There are so many times I've read in my journals where the Lord has taken me back to Psalm 16 in my suffering. For you will not leave my soul in Sheol, is the part that keeps getting, you will not leave me here, God. He says, my flesh will rest in hope. You are not going to leave me in Sheol. In your presence, there's fullness of joy. And if there's anything that I've learned in suffering, is that joy is much more than me putting a smile on my face and showing up and doing it. It's being honest with the Lord and being like, you're worth it. Life sucks. I love you. You're good. He will not leave your soul in Sheol. He will not leave your soul there. If you ask him, he's faithful to show up. He's faithful to come when you ask. Just let yourself, sometimes, there's one time I came in the prayer room, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do all these things, and I'm going to read this, and I'm going to do that. And the Lord's like, no. Like, you just need me to speak and sing over you, and you just need to be there. So I pulled up, and I literally was sitting in one of those black desks, and I put my feet up, crossed them over, and I said, all right. And I just sat there, and I just remember, like, I could have stayed there. I wasn't asleep, guys. I was legit eyes closed and engaged with the Lord. You know, sometimes you can fall asleep. So I was like, Lord, like, I'm just here. And I just sat here like this with my arms crossed. Like, I was just sitting there for, I think, a whole hour. And then I opened my eyes, and I was like, the next set already? Like, and it's not even like, oh, I was hearing these things from the Lord, but my heart felt so at rest because I decided to cease striving and decided to cease things that I'm trying to earn something from him that I already have. And when I just got to sit with him, I was like, all right, like, I don't have to do something every second, because a lot of being friends is just sitting doing nothing. When you get married, a lot of marriages is sitting and doing nothing with somebody, right? Like you're just enjoying time with them. You have TV on, or like you're doing one thing, they're doing another, but you know they're there. You know that you can just call down from the hall or like from the kitchen, like dinner's ready, and like you're doing something else, like, you know, like you're just around each other. So ask him more about himself. Call on him. If your mind is in turmoil, just speak the name of Jesus. I was thinking about that today. I felt really chaotic this morning. All of our stuff isn't packed or unpacked, and I was like, that's it, I'm having a bad day. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do this today. Because I could not get myself out of it. I get in that room this morning, and I just go, okay. I'm texting my husband, like, today's a bad day. I don't want to do this. Like, please pray for me. And then I finally get in this spot with the Lord where I just stop trying to make things work myself. I just stop trying to get the chaos to end myself. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I just take this audible, like, and I'm like, okay. Like, just let him love you. He loved you first. And you were made to love him in return. Sit with him. Give it to him. If your life's really good right now, give that all to him. If your life's really bad right now, give that all to him. So that's my invitation for you guys. Can I pray for you?
Yes.
All right. Oh, Jesus. God, first I just thank you for how much you delight in us. God, I thank you that you call us friends. Jesus, that you are truly the only one that knows what it means to be a really good friend. So, Father, I just ask over these interns as they get in the prayer room, Father, and as they continue through the internship, God, that you would come close to them. God, that when their hearts are fragile and bleeding everywhere, God, that you would come and show them where you are. God, when they're bored and distracted, God, that you would come and break in through that, and that they would be able to get their eyes off of you. Father, I ask that you would give them grace to do this internship, that you would give them grace in suffering. God, I ask that you would give them grace to keep going even when they want to quit. God, I thank you for their yes. God, I thank you for the time that is put aside to come and get oil, that and learn skills and things that you are going to say that's going to carry them into getting more oil in the future, Father. So I just ask that you would come even now, God. I ask that you would come even as they're walking into that prayer room and just come and encounter their hearts with how much you love them and how much you want their friendship back in return because of how much you've loved them first. So God, I ask for open hearts. God, even right now, that all distractions would fall before they get in the prayer room. God, that they would just be able to lock in with you. Jesus, I thank you for your presence even now. And I just thank you that you're the best. There's no one like you, God. We love you. Amen.
Amen.